Hello everyone, this is Parrish. Today is April 4th, 2013. Time 11:56 a.m. This video is on a dream I had earlier this morning. First thing I recall about this dream is that I found myself inside a subway system. I'm not sure if the subway system that I found myself in was in an American city or inside a foreign city, but nevertheless I felt as if I was in some kind of metropolitan area. I was inside a train, which is inside the subway system I was in, or dream of being in. Then the train I was in pulled into a particular subway station. The train door opened and I exited the train. I noticed there were a few amount of people on the platform, and I also noticed another black man standing behind me. This black man looked somewhat homeless, and he began ranting and raving, and he spotted me. Then he started to say things to me, and I ignored him as I approached the exit of this subway system. The black individual continued to follow me, and I believe I heard a voice tell him more or less to leave me alone, that I belong to someone. And the other black person that heard this strange voice stopped following me. Then I exited the subway station. Then I found myself outside. It was daytime. It looked a little bit like this. Pretty bright / little bit grayish out. And I noticed there were white people around me, and these individuals dressed casually. And I thought out loud, am I in New York, Manhattan? Then I said out loud, is this 34th Street? Then I said out loud, is this Washington Square Park or the Village or 4th Avenue or 4th Street? Then the people that were around me all shouted and said, oh, there's Pope Francis. So they ran towards Pope Francis, and I noticed Pope Francis was more or less across the street, attempting to enter a white, tall building that looked to me like a residential building. And the people ran towards him, and they encircled themselves around him, and he was blessing them and shaking the people's hand. So I said to myself, well, let me go and meet Pope Francis. So I walked quickly towards Pope Francis, and I go into my pocket to take out my cell phone so I can videotape my encounter with Pope Francis. I retrieved my cell phone and I attempted to record, but something was wrong with my cell phone. So Pope Francis was about to enter this building, so he saw me come up towards him, and I extended my hand out towards him. Then I told Pope Francis, I'm praying for you. And he told me he needed all the prayer he can get. So he grabbed hold of my hand. Instead of giving me a firm handshake, he just shook my 4 fingers, the fingertips of my right hand. Then the next thing that took place in this dream is that I found myself inside a building. This building, I believe, was across the street from the building that Pope Francis had already entered in. I believe I was on the top floor of this building inside a bedroom, and I believe I was sitting on top of a bunk bed. And I looked up and I seen the ceiling. So I was pretty high up inside this room, sitting on this bed. And I looked out the window and I saw Pope Francis across the street and standing outside more or less in this building he just entered in early in this dream. And it appeared to me he was sitting on a terrace, which was like on the 2nd floor of this building. And I noticed a black priest dressed in white. He was sitting in front of this building. This building had like a small gate, and I believe a stoop that led to the 2nd floor, which Pope Francis was in, and sitting outside on the terrace of the 2nd floor. I believe this building may have been a 3rd or maybe 4th-story building. It looked like a residential building. It may have been part of a row houses, or maybe standing alone, a single standing residential building. Then I noticed the address of this building that Pope Francis was in, and the address on the front door, which was located on the ground floor, read 531. Then, after taking notice of the address of the building, I looked up at the ceiling that I was in, the room that I was in, and I noticed small birds and small tiny creatures began to materialize over me, and the small birds were very colorful. The smaller other creatures I could not identify were also colorful. They may have been butterflies, monarch butterflies, and believe it or not, the small birds were dropping raspberries, I believe it was, blueberries and small fruits into my lap, and I believe some of the birds were singing over me. Then I took notice to my right a small puff of smoke or a small cloud, and this small cloud was more or less the size of my hand, and the small cloud displayed a pair of wings. There was one white wing and there was one left wing extending out from this small cloud, which was more or less flying away from me. Then to my left, I took note of a small baby, a small black female baby, and to my right, I noticed a small baby. I believe it was a little boy. I just saw the top part, the head part of the little boy. And then I extended my arms upward to attempt to touch the little birds and the little creatures, and I noticed that Pope Francis across the street took notice of me trying to touch the little birds that was flying over my head, and I picked up that this was an omen for me, and Pope Francis took notice that it was also an omen given to me. Then the last thing that took place inside this dream is that I extended my hands upward and 3 little birds landed in my hand, and the birds were colorful. There was one reddish orange bird, I believe. There was one yellow bird and one blue bird. And before I left this dream, the very last thing I seen in this dream was that I was in the bathroom that Pope Francis was in, and Pope Francis was inside of a tub, and he was shaving his face with a razor, and he was talking to someone. I got the impression someone standing in front of the bathroom door, and the last thing I heard Pope Francis say to the person, the unknown person standing by the bathroom door, is that Pope Francis mentioned something about 10 boys, and I picked up he wanted the 10 boys to be kept a secret. Then I woke up from this dream. I will show you guys and gals the drawing that I felt inspired to draw, pertaining to the things that stuck out inside this dream. Okay, I forgot to tell you guys and gals that actually when I exit out of the subway, I took notice in the background an airplane. Looks like this airplane was coming in for landing. Then I took notice of this thing. I'm not sure what it was. It may have been some type of street light. Okay, so then like I said earlier, I was in a room across the street from the Pope, and I'm looking out my window, and I took notice of a black Pope down below and Pope Francis sitting, I believe, in a balcony. Then I once again was inside this room, and I seen birds and maybe monarch butterflies, and then I took notice of this small cloud that had wings. This is me. And the birds were dropping small fruits. I think some of these fruits were blueberries and raspberries. And then the very last thing inside this dream that I took notice of, were 3 or at least the last vivid thing I took notice of inside this dream, were 3 small birds sitting in the palm of my hands. Okay, I took notice of a reddish orange bird, a yellow bird, and a blue bird. Okay, thank you for watching.